There may only be 13 shaman occupants in the village at present, 14 if a demonic entity were to be considered a legitimate contestant and not fall under the same umbrella as a guardian ghost, but the tired and overworked officiant found himself just as busy in this fabricated realm as he did in any of his previous authentic variations. Circling himself back to the forest ends of the village's outside perimeter, he reluctantly arrived at the modest dwellings of the small hut sheltered by the meadow's trees. Remembering the king's strict instructions, no matter what happens, do not interfere, he hoped that getting himself begrudgingly involved in a relationship breakdown did not fall within that category. For the second time that day, which was 2 times too many, Silva approached the quaint wooden door, confident that the strange being that dwelled beyond it was likely still admiring himself. On this occasion, he made the wise choice to save himself another awkward encounter and knock this time. Moments later, an over-friendly smile appeared in the open doorframe. No words were exchanged between the strikingly similar in appearance duo as the small satchel was swiftly handed over. The shorter one instantly opened the bag to inspect its contents, immediately pulling out the clinking metal-plated belt in his fist. Hao looked up and met the officiant's expressionless eyes and gave him a warm smile, and a genuine glint of gratitude sparkled in his eye.
I have a message to pass on,
firmly stated the patch officiant after a beat. Hao blinked, surprised.
Oh?
Yo wishes for you to meet him at the usual spot this evening.
Silva watched as a distant stare appeared on the other's face. For a few tense seconds, Hao only gazed blankly back at him until his expression eventually flickered back to life.
I see,
replied Asakura Hao.
Thank you, Silva, and thank you for coming so quickly.
Silva bowed his head in response, but was alarmed to see Hao's cheeks flush an intense bright red. Before the officiant could open his mouth to reply, the wooden door slammed shut in his face, the fragile frame rattling on its hinges from the force.
You asshole! You're so embarrassing!
Silva found himself frozen in place, his chiseled, hardened features a hair's breadth from the closed door, the scent of the old wood filling his nose. Calmly turning around to take his leave, he took a moment to consider the unusual and extremely unsettling scenario. In more than one context, he had a strong understanding of the sadistic nature belonging to the secondary soul occupying the somewhat more gentle illusionary form of the king. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch to assume he would have discovered some sort of advantage from the duality of the situation. Distancing himself from Yo, clearly a tactical move, was to be expected. But how exactly does one distance themselves from the one inhabiting the same physical being? One whose very fabrication was created in the same form as themselves. His own multifaceted mind paused. It was quite obviously a different psyche makeup compared to his own, though it had never once occurred to him how exactly the king himself keeps himself in a check like that, if at all. It would certainly explain a few things about his unpredictable approach to managing the universe, and for his reasoning behind the very existence of this strange, completely out of touch with reality commune. Silva turned around and shot a curious glance at the cottage sitting idle behind him. As he did, the Shaman King's stern words rang in each chamber of his layered mind once more. No matter what happens, do not interfere. He most certainly did not want to interfere with whatever the hell was happening here. Flanking the other side of the cottage threshold, the flustered fire shaman stood rigid, covering his face with both palms in an effort to suppress the ridiculous grin on his lips, the strap of his newly returned satchel hanging awkwardly in the crook of one arm. Though it was impossible to hide anything going on from within, shielding his own eyes to prevent them from looking straight towards the cracked mirror was his only singular effective method to conceal his red-burning cheeks from the sight of his internal companion.
You're adorable when you try to act serious. When underneath, you're just a big sensitive softie,
came the amused quip of his demonic occupant, followed by a breathy chuckle. Hao allowed his arms to fall limp at his sides. He threw his head back in a defeated, frustrated manner.
Underneath, I have you.
He yelled at the ceiling. He lulled his head forward and shot an aspirated look at the mirror before his gaze drifted towards the single futon bed by the window. He began to make his way towards it.
What are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing? I'm going to take a nap.
He chuckled innocently in response.
Why?
Hao paused in the center of the room. The unfamiliar and unusual tone of the single-syllable question lingered in his mind. He couldn't resist looking back at his mirrored image in the broken frame.
Why do you think? I want to see you.
There was a silence in his mind for the first time in a while, his brow furrowed.
Zeke.
I don't think that's a good idea, Hal.
Stunned by his second self's words, Hal laughed nervously.
What? What are you?
We can have fun together in the outside world now,
Interrupted Asakura Zeke.
Wouldn't you rather be awake?
Asakura Hao could feel a familiar sense of dread beginning to spread within his chest.
I just wanted to see you. Is something wrong?
When Hao's question went unanswered, he quickly threw the satchel in his hand to the dresser and swiftly made his way towards the freestanding mirror, tightly gripping onto both sides of the frame. He leaned in and gazed intensely at his own face.
Zeke, what is it?
I think from now on, dreamless sleep is probably for the best.
Sadly replied his reflection.
But we can still be together when you're awake, Hal.
What? I'm confused. Are you choosing not to see me in our world on purpose?
Hesitantly asked Hao. The reflection did not respond.
Zeke!
Hao noticed immediately how his broken reflected face behaved exactly how a reflection should. There was not a single slight difference in his movements, expression, or black glistening eyes.
Zeke!
He stepped back slowly from the mirror in complete disbelief. He spun himself around, observing the empty room around him. For the first time in a very long time, Asakura Hao was completely alone. Cemented to the spot, Hao felt his heart quicken inside his ribcage. His mind raced with questions and worries. The fluttering, radiating anxiety rising from within made his new poncho feel like it was suffocating him, as though it were tightening around his throat. With one sudden jerky motion, he tore the garment from his body and hurled it to the floor. Turning away, he took a few long strides to the futon and climbed onto it. He screwed his eyes shut and curled his knees to his chest in an effort to bring himself some comfort. His body ached with fatigue. He hadn't slept for almost a day, but he knew sleep would not come easily. His mind ran too fast, his heart pounded too hard, and the silence around him only seemed to amplify the relentless noise that was beginning to rise from the inside. The noise that was usually pacified by a comforting blanket, one that numbed the pain, canceled out the fears, kept away the tears.
Zeke,
he silently called, hoping that perhaps that would elicit a response. Nothing. Anger began to creep in, bubbling from deep within his core, though he knew that was not going to help matters. To counter it, he forcibly inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly. Alone with his own thoughts, vivid harrowing images from earlier that same day began to flicker in quick succession behind his closed eyelids. To accompany them, the officiant's message came to the surface, and for the first time in a little while, an image of his little brother's face appeared in his mind.
I told you, Ni-chan. You're never going to lose me.
Asakura Hao felt his bottom lip quiver involuntarily.
Whatever it is, we can figure it out.
Zeke, please, just answer me.
Hao snapped open his eyes. He saw nothing but blankness. He tried to look around to see if he could see something. Anything. He attempted to bring his hands in front of his face, but his body would not obey him.
Zeke, 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 Zeke.
The sound of his own voice in his empty mind world began to echo and reverberate around him. The noise became distorted, stretching out, becoming louder and louder, overwhelming his head, overwhelming his soul. The noise was deafening. It began to consume his only remaining senses.
No, please, stop.
He agonizingly screamed. The noise abruptly ceased. The darkness remained, still and silent. A sense of calm began to grow within the infinite space. Finding himself in familiar territory, Asakura Hao concentrated hard on his only remaining sense, his acute, powerful, sharp shamanic sense. He reached out into the empty void as far as he possibly could. A silent, familiar presence was calling to him.
I can feel you.
He called towards it, trying to match the exact same comforting inflection as his identical other self. The presence began to creep closer.
That's okay.
He called again, concentrating hard on every time his immaterial companion had offered him the same reassuring short phrase. A tantalizing sensation began to ripple from within the void.
Are you here?
The two words were spoken with a firm determination. A familiar mirrored stubbornness dripped in his tone. Something began to build. Something began to appear in the darkness. Hao could feel his visual sense returning. He blinked slowly as a familiar sight came into view, a never-ending mirror that scaled the space infinitely in every direction. Hao's own reflection finally materialized before him. A yellow and black tracksuit. A pair of brown and golden irises. But that was not the reflection he wanted to see.
Zeke.
He sighed. A strange mix of sadness and relief rolled off his tongue as he spoke his other's name at his own appearance.
Please.
You should wake up, Hao.
Came the short, matter-of-fact answer. The reflection's lips did not move along to the echo of the words.
Zeke. What is it? Why won't you show yourself to me?
It's not going to be the same in here anymore.
Came the sad reply.
What do you mean?
I can't use my powers here now. I can't make this a comfortable place for you anymore. It's best if we just talk when you're awake.
I didn't ask you to use your powers. I just want to see you.
Hao's own reflection once again did not change. He gazed back desperately at his own eyes.
Zeke, it's okay. Just tell me what's wrong. Whatever it is, we'll face it together.
Hao,
Sensing a genuine ache in his other's voice, Hao brought one hand up to the glass pane in front of him. His reflection copied him, mirroring his every subtle movement, and he touched palms with his own mirrored hand. A long silence grew once more. Asakura Hao took in a slow, deep breath. He recalled his earlier ability to change this plane to his will. Then he remembered. This was not Zeke's realm. It was his.
You're not the only one with powers in this place. Have you forgotten what I am?
Hao began to gently push his palm against the glass. He smiled as he watched his fingers begin to sink into the mirror like it was simply a pool of liquid metal.
Hao, don't!
Ignoring the demon's alarmed tone, the illusion pulled himself through the threshold until he emerged completely on the other side. His vision became blurred once more. It took a moment for the figure in front of him to come into view. With one hand, he reached out towards the face of the one he was searching for. A pair of fierce, piercing eyes began to appear, but they were not the all-black irises that shimmered like a sky full of stars, the ones Hao had always adored. They were blood red, burning and alive, illuminating from within the darkness, like fire. The cheek he held in his palm was ice-cold to the touch, but Hao did not pull his hand away. Instead, he lifted his other hand and tenderly embraced the face of the being in front of him with both hands, as though to bring him some warmth. The freezing, rigid fingers of the other returned the comforting touch and gripped a hold of the inside of Hao's forearms. Asakura Hao smiled.
There you are.
This is the real me. I didn't want you to see me this way.
Hao took a moment to absorb what he was seeing. Zeke's frame was like skin and bone. His long hair resembled black ebony straw, and his complexion appeared ghostly and grayed. Then Hao's gaze drifted to the distinct, clean, vertical scar between Zeke's eyes. He noticed how it almost seemed to split his face perfectly in two. Then he realized.
It was you, wasn't it? The vision was you.
Zeke looked away from Hao's reassuring gaze. He dropped his arms down to his sides and did not move an inch, nor respond to his companion's question. Another brief silence grew.
He really did have a twin, didn't you?
Pushed the illusion, gently. There was a pause as Hao awaited an answer.
Yes.
Hao sighed deeply. He tilted his head to the side as though he was trying to meet Zeke's burning gaze once more.
All this time. Why didn't you just tell me?
I didn't think you would understand.
Zeke confessed, keeping his guilty gaze away.
You had such a beautiful relationship with your brother.
It's okay. I understand now.
Zeke finally met his alt's soft, kind eyes once again.
You're not angry that I lied?
My whole existence is a lie. If anything, out of the both of us, you're more real than I am.
You're real to me.
A warm, delighted smile appeared on the Aleutian's lips in response to the genuine affection in the demon's words. The seal had ensured they could remain together in some way as separate entities in this realm, but the properties of the binding spell had stripped them both completely bare. A genuine soul and a fabricated soul were meeting each other for the very first time. How gently pulled the worried face he was holding in his hands closer to him.
I never thanked you properly for saving me today.
A short, breathless gasp escaped Zeke's lips as Hao brought one hand from the side of his face, under his chin, and tilted his head. The illusion and the demon locked eyes briefly, and despite the restricted powers of the one responsible for their usual cocoon of comfort, they experienced the exact same overwhelming wave of pleasure they were both so familiar with, as Hao's soft, warm mouth touched Zeke's ice-cold lips. Hao reached his other hand around the back of the other's head and pulled him in deeper. Zeke's lips parted, and they both sank into one another like perfect harmony. An electric, unbreakable shock wave flared between them as a cross-dimensional pulsating force ignited within their mirrored, reflected cores. Asakura Zeke lowered his hands to the small of his alt's back and harshly pulled him closer, earning him a murmured moan from the illusion within his own throat. Hao ringed his fingers through Zeke's brittle hair and gripped a handful tightly in his fist. He pulled them apart for a moment and gazed deeply into Zeke's bright, burning eyes, allowing them both to momentarily gasp for air.
Don't ever leave me all alone like that again.
I won't, Hao. I promise.
The demon's words were cut short as his immaterial other self reconnected their lips with some force. Zeke noticed a shaky disposition apparent in the movements of his illusion, as a flood of intense overlapping emotions began to consume Hao from the inside. He screwed his eyes tightly closed as he tried to mentally bat away his earlier anxiety, plagued by the prospect he may have lost Zeke too, mixed with the immense relief, joy, and pleasure to finally have him back in his arms. Their mutual attunement raw and aligned in their internal realm in the same way they were in the outside world, Zeke absorbed every shred of Hao's relentless internal waves and married it with his own, intense, fierce, more possessive grip, forcing the other back against the endless shield that dwarfed them, and smiling into Hao's lips when he didn't just send Hao falling back through a transparent liquefied wall, the risk he took hoping it would have solidified to contain his alt within his mirrored prison paying off. The illusion smiled too, the position allowing him to wrap all his limbs around Zeke and embrace him entirely in his hold. Hao opened his eyes, expecting to see the red glows of his partner's immense glare, but was caught off guard when he saw what were dark, glistening voids instead. In their close proximity, as they parted for a moment, the identical pair observed how they were in almost every way alike once more. Hot breaths and the thumping of imaginary rushing blood were the only sounds passing between them. Without words, their eyes said everything that they could possibly say. Somehow, their paths had led them to this unmistakable, undeniable, cross-dimensional, almost impossible point in time, space, and reality. A false reality within a false reality. One half of them false in nature, the other transcended beyond dimensional boundaries. And yet, this was exactly where they wanted to be, where they needed to be, with each other. With the pressure of the demon's lower abdomen keeping the illusion elevated against the enormous illusionary mirror, Zeke brought a gloved hand to cup the face of his alt. Hao leaned into it, sighing pleasantly.
I'm sorry.
Zeke whispered, a kindness and a softness in his voice.
I shouldn't have tried to hide from you.
Hao's eyes glistened with genuine acceptance and forgiveness, that comforting feeling of warmth he was so used to filling the empty cavity in his chest, just like it always did at his other's reassuring words.
Old habits.
Hao mused with a playful smile.
I guess that's to be expected of us, huh?
Zeke chuckled, bringing his hand lower to trace the other's jaw. His eyes narrowed down, locking his possessive gaze on the mouth of his other.
Now that I have you all to myself in here, the possibilities are endless. What should I do with you first,
Hao grinned. He leaned in, bringing his mouth within a breath of his identical demonic partner's lips.
It's like you said.
He began, offering a fleeting touch on the curved smirk of his other half.
Anything you want.